Hello and welcome back. In this section, we are going to talk about non-primitive data type. Unlike the primitive data type, the non-primitive data type are also known as reference types. And these are types that are pretty much used to reference objects. And these non-primitive data types are data types that comprises of more complex structures because they are usually a combination of more than one or two primitive data type, right? So I'm just going to get into the different types of non-primitive data type that we have. And as I explain, I hope that it becomes clearer. So the first non-primitive data type we have is known as object. So I'm just going to call this the object data type, right? And an object is pretty much a data type that contains more than one data type, right? It is a structure that comprises of key value pairs, and each of these keys points to different values, and these values could be different data type, right? A very good example would be if we create a person object here, for instance, and this is how you create an object in JavaScript. You create your variable name and you assign it to and you start with creating this opening and closing curly braces, right? So here I'm going to create a key called name, and I'm going to assign this a value of Stephen. I'm also going to create a key called age and assign it a value. And I'm also going to create a key called is adults and assign it a value, right? And you can call this name, you can also call it property. They pretty much mean the same thing. These are keys, this is value, it's key, this is value, and these are also properties, right? So you can call it any one of those, right? So I'm just going to stick with property. As you can see here, we've created this name property and we've assigned it a value of Stephen, which is a string, right? So we've created an age property here and we've assigned it a value of a number. And we've created an is adult property here and we've assigned it to a Boolean, right? That is the whole concept of the object data type. Unlike the primitive data type, we couldn't do that because the first name is already pointing to a string and uh, that's pretty much it, right? That's just a string data type. It's just going to store a couple of words, right? And that's the end, right? But for the object data type, this is a structure that houses more than one data type, right? And we can see that here. So if we try to do a person, if we try to see the properties and methods that are available to this person object and we do a person dots, we get to see that we have name show up. We get to see all the properties we've defined. And our code editor already knows what the data type for each of these properties are. As you can see, adults here points to a Boolean, name here points to a string, and age here points to a number. Right. So this is a very nice way of creating complex data structures, maybe in a situation where you want to create a data type or that you'd be able to use to handle more extensive stuff, right? Then this comes in handy. All right. So moving on to the next data type, that would be the array data type. So the array is quite different from the object data type. And interestingly enough, right, the array data type is also an object, right? But unlike the person objects or unlike the object data type that we have here, the structure for an array is pretty much different, right? An array is also majorly used in storing, let's say, ordered flow, right? It's majorly used in storing ordered entries, ordered collections, right? A very good example of that would be we try to do something like grades, for instance, right? We'll start by creating this variable that we've done here called grades, and we just point it to this opening and closing brackets, right? What we then now move on to do is fill it up with a couple of data. We could say 100, 90, let's say 80. Sorry, we already did 80. We could do 60. Right. So what we've just done here is we've created an array of numbers, right? As you can see, this is taking just numbers, right? But the beauty of arrays is they aren't just limited to this. We could also create a mixed array, for instance, that will store both numbers, strings, and let's say Boolean, right? So as you can see, we can use this to store more than one type of data type, right? So we can use it to store more than one type of data, right? And that's like the whole idea of arrays. For would majorly use arrays to, you know, store data that would probably want to sort later, right? And maybe extract a couple of results from them and so on and so forth, right? So that's like the whole idea, right, of the array data type. If we try to see the properties and methods that are available on this data type, you can see that there is quite a number of them, right? We have the hearts, we have the lens, we have the map, pop push. You shouldn't worry about what all of this mean now. We'll get to them in other videos, right? But these are like the properties and methods that are available for the array data type. So moving on to the final data type that is non-primitive, we are going to talk about the function data type. Excuse me. And the function data type is pretty much a very interesting data type, and that's because functions in JavaScript are first-class objects. And what that means is we could pass them around. We could manipulate them in different ways. And examples of that would be we could assign these functions to variables. We could return these functions. We could we could do so many things with them pretty much. Like that's the whole idea of functions, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create our very first function. And to create a function in JavaScript, we are going to use the function keyword. And here I'm going to use we are going to create a function titled say hello. We are going to give this a parameter of name and we are going to test it out. So a function should always return a value, right? And here we're just going to return this hello name. And in case you are wondering what this is, what we are just doing is we are concatenating two strings together, right? We are concatenating two strings together to make a sentence, right? Yes, we can concatenate strings in JavaScript, right? Which is pretty much the addition of more than one string, or the addition of more than one strings really, right? And that's like the whole idea. As you can see here, this CLO takes in a parameter of name, and we are assigning that name to the hello keyword that we have here to return later. So how do we use the say hello function? A very good example would be like so. All right, so we're just saying Steven, right? And we've been typing out a couple of names like this more often in this video. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to pass this a variable of Steven. The variable, excuse me, the variable is already holding the value Steven, right? So when this function gets called, it should output hello Steven, right? And that's the whole idea of functions, right? If we also try to get the properties and methods that are available here on this say hello, you can see that there's quite a number of them. There's a length property, there's a name property, there's a color property, a prototype property, and so much more. All right, so I'm just going to keep this simple and I'm going to assign the results of CL to a variable. So I'm going to do this by saying results, and then I'm going to do a console.log on results. When I run this script, we should have say hello. We should have hello Steven show up in the console. So if we do a node data type.js, we get CL, and that is the output from the function that we created here, the CL function. So to go over everything again, we have primitive data types and we have non-primitive data types. Non-primitive data types are pretty much data types that can contain, that comprises of more than one data type. For instance, in the function data type, we could expand this. Let me get rid of this. We could expand this to not just take name, we could expand it to take age, and we could expand this to taking a Boolean value like is adult, right? And these are the different parameters we can pass into this function, right? And each parameters we pass in are separated by commas, right? For instance, if we move on to make a very full sentence out of this, we could say hello name. Uh, we could do a I am, let's say, age years old, missing a plus here, and this would make like a full sentence, right? But yeah, we're just going to keep this simple and make it very easy. And we're just going to stick with the name. And that's pretty much data type in JavaScript. In the next section, we are going to talk about the differences and the similarities between primitive data types and non-primitive data types. Yeah, thank you.